Chapter 7. An Unlikely Ally. Goliath cleared his throat. Master, I don't mean to intrude, but I think we have a battle out there. It's Ammon. I whirled around and grabbed Osriel's battle axe and launched myself out of the pyramid. Ammon stood steadfast and unmoving. I went to strike him, but he batted me away effortlessly. Stay still, boy. I came with a message from my new friend. But I don't do favors, so I brought her with me. I hope you don't get too mad. Ammon laughed evilly and snapped his tail. A portal opened and the familiar gold-clad warrior was thrown out into the sand. I quickly darted forward to scoop her up when Ammon plunged his hand deep into my chest, his hand exploding out of my back. Gold blood spilled from my lips as he threw me to the floor. Layla lifted her head to see my body on the floor, blood draining rapidly into the sand. Her scream snapped me awake, rage clouding my vision. My muscles grew twice their size and I rose to my feet. I sliced through time and space and bellowed, letting the demons flow through. Rigel and the female demon emerged from the slashes and stared at me. I pointed my finger at Ammon and the demons attacked. Ammon sprouted wings and flapped into the air and beckoned to me to follow. I obliged and darted after him. Ammon whipped his tail around to hit me, but he missed and I sliced through his tail. But it regrew almost instantly. Then Ammon snatched his barbed tail before it fell and used it to strike me. The barbed spikes raked across my face, burning instantly. Not caring, I fought through the pain and tried to grab Ammon, when he brought his fist down on top of my head, sending me into the dirt. Ammon opened his hand, and a blast of air sent me flying through the pyramid. I hit solid stone floor with such an impact the pyramid shook violently. Ammon laughed and said, "You will thank me later, boy." With that he vanished, taking Layla with him. Something smashed behind me, and I saw a jackal with a sickle. Saliva dribbled down his chin and pooled onto the floor. The jackal spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. "You. Are you here for a quick death?" I tilted my head. "What do you mean, am I here for a quick death? I didn't come here by will. I do need an artifact though." The jackal stepped to the side. "This trinket. Why?" I gazed at the gauntlets. They glowed with the light of 1,000 stars, and embedded on the knuckles were swirling crimson stones that were spiked at the end. My view was blocked by the jackal once again. "I sense something inside you, boy. Something ancient yet something new. I wish to see it, before I deem anyone worthy of taking the trinket. So, you will need to impress." The jackal suddenly froze on the spot, its eyes closely inspecting my face. The jackal pushed its snout into my face. I could see that one of its eyes were missing. It turned its good eye to me, which had narrowed down to a slit. A vicious growl rose from the creature's throat. The jackal snarled and leaped back, sickle flashing in the dim light. Sparks flashed across the floor as the blade slashed across stone. I exhaled slowly and let my power flood off me in waves. My third eye flashed an eerie crimson and flooded over me. When the light dimmed, my true and terrible form was apparent to the jackal. The jackal's lips peeled back to bare yellowing teeth. "It is as I thought. You do have my eye. Good. This means you are worthy to fight me. The man who took my eye was most powerful. And now my eye has passed on to you." I cocked my head and stepped forward, flames burning furiously around me. I drew the sword of Octane Kahira and the battle axe of Osriel. I launched myself forward, a flurry of blades. Anubis shook his head and swiped his sickle, flooring me instantly. Sickle blade placed to my throat. Suddenly the sickle blade phased through me, as I disappeared into smoke. Anubis turned his head slightly, his eye gazing at me. "You're forgetting, boy. You fight a beast. We go by our sense of smell and I can smell your scent." Anubis sliced through the fabric of space and time, undead spilling through his portals. I clenched my hands into fists and brought my fists together. Fire exploded through Anubis's undead ranks, burning them to cinders in seconds. I pointed at Anubis and Goliath appeared wielding his great sword. Anubis lowered his body ready to pounce when I suddenly lunged forward and grabbed Anubis by the scruff of the neck and lifted him up. My third eye slowly began to open, ready to vaporize Anubis, when the jackal slashed my arm and landed on his feet. You fight too well for a mere mortal. I can see the demon blood is beginning to take firm hold of you. There is only one person who has the power to take your curse away, and it's the very demon that gave it to you in the first place. Ammon. You will need more power than you could possibly get, but your new friends can help you in that department. I have seen and fought against such ferocious beasts. That's the best way even I can put it. Your demon can absorb the power of fallen demons to bolster their own life force, and yours too should you so desire. The only downfall is you will have to learn the secrets of the art, necromancy. But of course you have already begun to dabble in the dark arts. But there is so much more to discover. But I have one more request. Fight me in all your glory and you will receive a gift from me, or you can leave with the artifact now. Make your choice. I closed my eyes for a moment, and when I opened them again, my eyes glowed red and I saw what Anubis meant. You mean? No, I can't. Isn't your job here? I can't take you away from your job. Anubis's hackles rose as he replied bluntly, You think I chose this tomb as my home? I was bested by a god and then left here to die. Then every couple of weeks a mortal would stumble in here to take the artifact. So, I assigned myself this job. Just because I chose it doesn't mean to say I like it. The god that left me here was the one who took my eye. He was riddled in evil, but you boy. I sense no evil. Insatiable rage sure, but not evil. I would happily accompany you on your journey, and I would be more help than that old trinket. I looked up when I felt sand fall onto my head, and I saw the group stood above peering into the hole that Ammon had made, and I realized that from here none of them could see Anubis. Anubis had lowered himself, ready to spring. I roared, Anubis, don't do it. The jackal god's ears pricked as he tried to stop, but his momentum carried him forward. With a yelp, Anubis hurtled into me, taking me off my feet. I closed my eyes waiting for the explosion of power from Blackbeard, but instead everyone burst out laughing. I was so surprised I had to ask, I don't understand. Why are you laughing? I mean everyone else sure, but why is Blackbeard laughing? Blackbeard chuckled. It looks like you made a new friend, my dear boy. Blackbeard looked closer at Anubis and nodded to himself. You have made a very powerful friend, boy. And you have matching eyes. The bristles on Anubis's fur rose ever so slightly. I put my hand out towards Anubis to calm him when the jackal sprang back and readied himself. The jackal growled, Are you ready, child? Remember our oath. You win, you will receive a gift from me, or you can take your artifact now and leave. I heard Seraphina exclaim, You entered an oath with the Lord of the Dead. I have heard of many a great warrior having fallen to him. And yet you seem to have already battled once, and now you wish to fight again. But why Lord Anubis? We need you here. Anubis ignored her question and fixed his eye on me, and it may have been the light, but his eye seemed to glow emerald green for a second. I slowed my breathing down and my form exploded into reality. My wings erupted from my shoulders in a shower of gold blood. My third eye sprang open in a crimson glare, and my form, even though unholy in looks, still had its holy aura. I drew the battle axe of Osriel and slammed the hilt to the floor. I nodded to Anubis. The god flashed forward much faster than before that I almost missed him. His scythe moved quicker than the god. I jumped back and began to breath quicker. As Anubis attacked again, I braced for the impact. And it came fast and menacing. I closed my eyes and felt the scythe enter my abdomen and erupt out of the other end. I grabbed Anubis by the scruff of the neck, and I threw him over my shoulder and slammed him into the floor. I grabbed the scythe and wrenched it from my stomach, with a roar of agony. Before I could do anything, Goliath appeared from the shadows, his great sword raised above Anubis, ready to finish him off. When he suddenly froze and turned his gaze in my direction, he began to shake as he backed away. I'm sorry, Master. I didn't know. I commanded. Anubis rose to his feet and even the god backed up a little bit. Enadin, are you, well? My eyes had a strange aura about them, and from my voice came Ammon's. How are we all doing? I almost forgot I could do this, so I just wanted to check in. And the boy needs his dose of boiling blood. Ammon laughed evilly as I collapsed to the floor, writhing in agony. Blood erupted from my mouth, dissolving the sand underneath me. Anubis immediately jumped over. Gabriel and Miasma also jumped into action. Seraphina looked around at how organized everyone was. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this has happened before, has it not? Gabriel snapped, Your Highness, I'm sorry to be blunt, but now is not the time be worrying about that. At the minute we need to worry about Enadin. But to answer your question, yes, this has happened a couple of times before. My back snapped as I arched my spine, a new wave of screams contorting my body. Tears streamed down my face, mixing with my blood on the floor. I clenched my fists and tore a chunk out of the cave wall and crushed them in my hands. My eyes opened, and I rose unsteadily to my feet. My third eye glowed hellish red, and a portal opened before me. I took a teetering step forward, only to be wrenched back by Anubis. The god waved his hand, and the portal vanished. You seem to be forgetting something, dear boy. Anubis's scythe glinted out of the corner of my eye, but he seemed to move slower than before. I had time to dodge and sent the god hurtling across the room with a flick of my finger. Anubis rose to his feet and slammed his hilt into the floor. A white pulsating light flashed across the floor, washing over me. I sank to my knees and let the glow envelope me, and Anubis stepped close and lifted up my chin with the tip of his scythe, the point inches from my throat. His claws gripped my chin, his eye burning deep into the eye nestled into my forehead. I slumped to the floor and raised my head to the ceiling and bellowed. My throat bulged as something began to force its way up my throat and exploded from my mouth. The strange gooey substance seemed to squirm and pulsated softly, like a beating heart. My eyes seemed to dance with the pulse when eventually the gooey substance began to form and Ammon stood before us in his full splendor. His face still something from a nightmare. His claws seemed sharper than I remembered. No sooner had the monster materialized, he slashed forward, raking his claws through the walls and the earth. We leaped back to avoid his attack, when he laughed menacingly. I hope you realize I know how to deal with all of you. But I'm not about to spoil my plans to some ungrateful kids who don't see family as anything. I stepped forward, my mortal guise melted away to reveal the holiest, unholy demon ever to stalk the earth. Ammon laughed shortly. Was that supposed to frighten me, boy? If it's fright you want. The demon snapped his fingers and a disheveled body was dragged roughly up a flight of stairs. A demon servant gripped the body by familiar red hair. My wings erupted from my back when a hand was laid on my shoulder. Gabriel shook his head sadly. We cannot do anything, my boy. You may be quick enough to get her, but that would leave us exposed a fraction too long. We need a better plan. Dina nodded at me and stood before Ammon and drew her claws. Ammon bent down and snorted with unholy demonic laughter. You believe that you could finish what your lowly parents couldn't finish. But let me tell you, the biggest moron of them all, in none other than you. Ammon's gaze found me and his eyes never wavered. Trust the power to choose someone wholly unworthy to wield the power of the gods. Ammon's arm shot forward with such speed it caught Dina off guard. She gasped and nimbly leaped out of the way. I darted forward, hurtling full speed towards Dina. Even though my expression remained emotionless, she seemed to understand me. I rushed Dina and grabbed her arms and swung her round with all my strength. And she sailed through the air, taking out scores of demons in her ascent. Her claws pierced through the metal, holding her in place. I left myself unguarded a second too long. I looked down in time to see Ammon's arm exploded through my stomach and erupted out the back. He tore my still-beating heart out in one swift motion. His fat tongue slithered across his lips. My quivering hands felt the giant hole in the middle of my chest. My vision began to cloud, but just before I blacked out. I began screaming wildly, my red eye a beacon shining deep into the night sky. A portal warped into being and legions of burly undead demons began to line up in a double file. I cracked my tail loudly and the sea of minions parted, allowing me through. I opened my jaws and exhaled a burning cloud of fire. I lifted my head to the sky and roared into the air. Quicker than I could react, Ammon surged forward, claws outstretched, ready to slice open my throat. Anubis leaped between me and Ammon. Anubis snarled, "Boy, find her, and bring her back. She is your fate. Do not let her go." Anubis raised his scythe and launched himself forward. My hand shot out and grabbed Anubis by the scruff of the neck and tossed him towards Gabriel and the others. "Protect them, Anubis. Use any means necessary. Goliath, you're with me." A shadow emerged beside me, great sword poised, ready to attack. Ammon shifted his gaze from my heart and turned an eye onto Goliath. Ammon turned his head to fix his full gaze on Goliath. "I see, Goliath. So this brat is keeping you hostage against your will. Where are the other two?" Goliath stepped up and pointed his finger to the familiar body on the top of the platform. I closed my eyes and launched myself up, fighting through the sandstorm that had whipped up around us without warning. I grabbed the edge of the platform and pulled myself up. No sooner had I pulled myself up, I had serrated claws and weapons pointed directly at me. Ammon looked up and I saw a grin on his horrifying features. "Good luck, Enedin. I hope you die horribly. Oh, and I want the body when you're done. And this time, don't fail me." Ammon vanished in a puff of smoke and his demonic laughter. My heart thumped to the floor with a heavy thud. I clutched my chest and collapsed to the floor. My moans of agony rang an eerie tune into the dark. Dina ran forward so fast she almost tripped over her own feet. She quickly scooped my heart up in her hands and delicately pushed my heart back into place and placed her hands over my wounds. A strange light began to work its way over my body, slowly repairing itself. I opened my eyes and I whistled softly. Anubis padded over to my side and sat down and lowered his head. I pointed a weak finger at the body with the red hair. "Please, help her." My hand went limp and fell to the floor. Miasma shuffled over and laid a hand on Dina's shoulder. "You are quite a natural with your healing. I will admit I have never seen anyone heal someone with shadows." Dina folded her arms and pouted. "My shadows are controlled by my will alone. If I want to hurt you, you gonna get hurt. And if I don't want you dead, then you ain't dead." Miasma mopped his forehead and simply nodded. Anubis bounded up to the platform and tore the demons to shreds in seconds. He picked up the body in his jaws and slowly made his way down as not to hurt the person inside. I crawled over to the bag and undid it. Inside was Layla, slightly worse for wear but still in one piece. I collapsed to the floor and my eyes closed as darkness closed in. A tear rolled down Dina's cheek and splattered onto my chest. A strange black light began to work its way up my body once again, sending me off into sleep. The first thing I noticed when I awoke was a great pain where my heart was. The second thing that came flooding back was how Ammon finished me quickly. I shook my head as I relived my heart getting wrenched from my chest. I weakly stood up and dragged myself over to the bed where Layla lay sleeping somehow contently. Miasma shuffled over and said softly, "She may look like she has survived her ordeal, but she may not be herself. She may see things differently now. Just be warned." I shakily held out my hand and went to grab hers when I pulled my hand away and shook my head. She is going to freak when she sees me now. I look nothing like I did back then. I turned on my heel and was about to leave when I heard a small voice come from the bed. "Enedin, is that you? Please save me." She began sobbing softly. Without thinking, I leaped to her side in one bound. Her purple eyes brimmed with tears as my unholy face gazed back. Her eyes widened slightly, and I shrank back slightly trying to hide my appearance, when a smile played across her lips. She held out her hand and I clasped it carefully in mine. Her free hand cupped my face and her fingers traced my features. Her fingers stopped inches away from my glowing third eye. Blackbeard slowly opened the infirmary doors and beckoned me over. I clicked my fingers and a legion of the faceless guards trooped in, blades strapped to their thighs and rifles to their backs. "Guard her with your lives. Do not leave her side for anything. Positions." I stood before Blackbeard and looked him in the eye. What's your report? You must have something for me. Blackbeard pointed his finger towards the throne room. Queen Seraphina requests a meeting with you. And your wild mutt is in there too. My third eye flashed open. Excuse me, pirate. Did you just call Anubis a wild mutt? How about this Blackbeard? Spar with Anubis before you make assumptions. Anubis will make an excellent addition to the team. Blackbeard's face twitched, but he bowed his head and nodded slowly. They are waiting for you, my lord. Faceless guards opened the door and closed it behind me. Queen Seraphina stood with a group of strange-looking people, to say the least. And I can't lie, if looks could kill, I believe I would be dead. The leader of the group stepped forward and addressed me. We want Anubis back where he belongs. He has a job to do. He agreed to fulfill his services and he hasn't completed them. He will be coming back with us this instant. Queen Seraphina ran before the leader and curtsied. My lord, I apologize for my acquaintance's behavior. We humbly request that Anubis finishes his service to me. I gazed lazily around my throne room and asked quietly, does the lady speak for you all? And answer truthfully. The assembled group nodded as one. I smiled evilly and laughed. I raised my finger to the heavens and pulled down. The sky split open and a single bolt of monster lightning split open the roof and sparked around the gods of Egypt. I smiled at the assembled gods and said shortly, I expect this fight to be an all-out battle. But only two will survive, right Anubis? Anubis stood by my side, scythe raised, ready to strike. The throne doors burst open just as the battle started. Layla stumbled in blanket trailing behind her. Both Osiris and I gazed at her in disbelief. Osiris's lips peeled back across his corpse-like face, his mummified fingers splayed forward to grab her. Layla stood still, seeing too late the danger she was in. Her wings erupted from her back to wrap around herself. I got in between Layla and Osiris, my battle axe slicing through Osiris's hand like it was paper. The resurrected king laughed silently and the wrappings began to lash themselves together once again. I glanced at Anubis with a glint in my eye. But he understood perfectly. He leaped behind me and scooped Layla up onto his back and bounded out of the throne room. The Egyptian gods tried to follow, but a single look from me stopped them short. You dare step foot out of this room, you can bet I will steal your soul. Osiris stepped forward to challenge my word. He didn't even see it coming. I clapped my hand over his mouth and pulled out his soul and crushed it into dust. The resurrected king fell forward, face split on the floor. I lifted his head in one clawed hand and crushed his head in one go. My third eye opened and a red light tore through the gods of Egypt's stomachs, cutting them in half. Only Seraphina stood against me. She was trembling with delicious fear. I stepped closer to her and inhaled sharply. I bared my teeth and lashed my tail out. She skipped back to distance herself from me, but it was no use as I kept pace with her. Her twin blades appeared in her hands and she began frantically slicing her swords at me. Her tears surprised me for a split second and caught me off guard. Gabriel threw open the doors, his face twisted in downright anger. His footsteps resounded on the gold floor. I turned my back and realized my mistake. Seraphina's blades sang forward, spearing through my back and erupting out my chest and stomach. I didn't even flinch as the blades pierced my flesh. Gabriel stared at me in disbelief. I locked eyes with Gabriel, find Anubis and help look after Layla. Seraphina twisted her blades and tore them out of me with a sick tear. The air began to shimmer and Goliath appeared, bellowing angrily. You dare lay a finger on the king? You shall pay the price for such transgressions. Goliath readied his great sword, poised to attack at any movement. Seraphina's blades flared up and combusted. She sprang forward only to be battered away by my wings. I folded my arms and glared at Seraphina. When will you realize, milady? You will not succeed. Your gods are no more. The only one left is Anubis, and you will not have him. Seraphina sank to her knees and shook her head. It would be an honor to allow you both to work together. You see, I may be Queen of Egypt, but the real ones in charge are the gods. But you managed to dispatch them with ease. My only request is you keep Lord Anubis safe." I heard a click and her gauntlets dropped to the floor with a thud. I stepped forward and grabbed her chin gently in my claws. "Is that what Osiris said? That you aren't a goddess?" I closed my eyes and continued, "Look around, Seraphina. The only goddess left to face me is you. Osiris was the first to die. The others died second and you survived. In my books that makes you a better goddess than them. Oh, and one more thing. Put your gauntlet on. I only need one." Gabriel walked through the doors with the rest of the gods and watched us closely. I flicked my finger and the gauntlet rose toward me. As my fingers closed around the hot metal, I could feel the power of the sun scorching my veins. I roared as sunlight tore through my veins at high speed. I fell to my knee and gazed at Seraphina. "You are strong indeed. To have both gauntlets on must have been excruciating." Seraphina raised her eyebrow at me. "Not really, my lord. I am the daughter of Ra, so I'm used to the searing sun and burning sands. But you will need training, my lord, if you wish to command such a devastating force. With it you will be able to call the power of the sun to fight at your side. You can get any creature from this region to follow you without question. With the power of the dead at your disposal as well, the possibilities are endless. I have somewhere you can test out your gauntlet. A little experiment if you like." A portal walked into life beside me and Seraphina gestured towards it. I stepped forward, about to step into the light, when I heard the patter of bare feet on the cold marble. I turned around just in time to see Layla fling her arms around my neck. "Will you be all right on your own, Enedin? I can help you." My arms automatically hugged her tightly. I raised my head slightly and my eye caught Anubis peering around the door with his ears down. I whistled shortly and Anubis sprang over, eyes blazing with fire. Layla cupped Anubis's head in her hands and whispered something into his ear. Anubis's ears pricked up and he nodded in agreement and rose to his feet, his claws gripping his scythe in determination. "I will do as you ask, Mistress Layla. No harm shall befall the master." Layla plucked a feather from her wings and pressed it into my hands, and her lips brushed mine for a fraction of a second that seemed to feel like eternity. She pulled away, and was about to dart off when she stopped by the door and looked me dead in the eye. "You better return, Enedin." I saw the glint of the old Layla flash just behind her eyes and I smiled. Gabriel nodded and bowed slightly. Blackbeard rounded the door and stopped in front of Layla. "Oh, Miss Layla. What are you doing up? Shouldn't you be resting?" He raised his eyes to me, stood in my full splendor and whistled. "You're looking sharp, Enedin. I see you're taking this role in your stride, eh?" I caught Blackbeard's eye and said, "When I return, it will be with a beast of the dead. I wonder what I'm going to get." I stretched out my hand towards the portal when an ear-splitting shriek shattered the mostly silence. A shadow flitted across the windows, blotting out the sun. A blast of fire lit up the sky. I could feel the heat from here. Dina raced through the door, hair frizzy and smoldering. "Well, you have a hungry dragon circling your palace. What's your course of action? Shoot it down?" I turned a burning eye full of molten malice. "Excuse me, Dina. I must have misheard you. I thought you said we should shoot down the glorious gift from Mother. But of course you didn't say such a thing." "Right, sister." Dina gulped and shook her head slowly. "No. No, of course not. I said we should capture the dragon before it escapes." Dina laughed nervously and shifted her gaze to Blackbeard. "Would you care to help me bring the beast under control?" Blackbeard held his hands up and replied shortly, "Honestly, there's no need. I think your brother has it covered." Blackbeard pointed a quivering finger at me. I stood facing the dragon. Both of us held in mid-flight, each staring the other deep in the eye. I was about to launch myself forward when I heard a soft, silky voice emanate from everywhere at once. "I trust you are not here to cause trouble. I have just emerged from my egg and I must be forced to fight already." The dragon's forked tongue slithered out of its mouth and ran over its lips. Its eyes seemingly staring right through me. When its tongue disappeared back inside its mouth, it said, "I see." My master sent me here to keep watch over you, as you may have the undivided attention of one of the worst creatures to ever walk the earth. I stared closely at the hellspawn dragon and took in its great size and beauty. I held my hand out slowly for the dragon to smell, and the dragon's nostrils flared as the dragon began to smell if I was good enough. Her nose turned up at me, and the dragon stared me deep into my eyes before speaking. Your demon blood is potent indeed, sir. If you have to go to war, you need an army. The dead are useful for many things. They can be used for training, or they can be acquired to fight by your side. I see you already have started to capture some. Goliath materialized by my side, eyeing up the towering lizard. Lord Enadin didn't capture me. I was assigned to him by the Demon King. But of course, Lord Enadin would see through a poor disguise such as the one Ammon thought up. The dragon glanced at Goliath and snorted. Then you have not even started. Is that what you're implying? Enadin, inside the portal, now.